Ooh. Yay, yay. Yeah. Yay, yay. Dum, dum. A new workout partner. It's at 8 p.m. When kickboxing and jiu-jitsu is over. That's when I gotta do extra conditioning. So I need to get an 8 p.m. client. A swim. 8 p.m. swim mate. Cute one. Yeah, I gotta do shoulder raises. I gotta do leg lifts. I did get my license back, so now I can do my OnlyFans. I guess that's gonna be the motivation I need. Been looking forward to this all day though. Apple cider. Lemon juice. Baking soda's already in there. Watch it fizz. Takes a little while because of the ice. Thank you, Joe. You say. A little too much lemon. I like the apple. Salute. Better. Ooh. Brain freeze. I won't let you get me though. What's going on here? Speakers on.
Deputy Chief Charles Hampton Jr. I'm here to provide an update on a homicide that we had at this location yesterday, shortly after 6:30. But before I give you the update, first I want to offer condolences to the victim in this case. The victim was a 26-year-old female who was here at work, and we also had another victim who's 24 years of age who also was shot and injured, who's currently in critical condition. I am here to announce that we did make an arrest. We made an arrest late yesterday evening of a 36-year-old male out of Atlanta. As stated before, I won't release the name right now because it's still an ongoing investigation. We still need to provide some information and get some information from some other individuals. But as most people know, this was a very tragic situation that did not have to occur. What we know is that the came inside the restaurant, ordered a sandwich, and there was something wrong with the sandwich that made him so upset that he decided to take out his anger on two of the employees here. What's more important as well is that the citizen, we had a citizen who contacted us, who gave us some vital information, and who helped lead this investigation around the direction. As we always say, we can't do it all. It's oftentimes that we rely on the support of the citizens of Atlanta, and that's what happened yesterday. So kudos to that individual who also that is going to be remain anonymous. But quick actions. Once we got the information, officers from our Zone 5 field investigation team as well as homicide descended on the location, and we were able to take the suspect in custody without further incident. And so again, very senseless act, that again, someone armed with a handgun who could not resolve the conflict decided that that was the way to resolve it. So now we have one female deceased and another female recovering from injuries. And also there was a 5-year-old child also in the restaurant. So that child was also in danger. That child is one that always talk about that did not have to happen, but there's still some residual effects that families are going to have to deal with. Not only on the side, but this child has to have a traumatic incident to have to deal with. So I answer a few questions at this time.
Chief, I noticed that you didn't mention the mayo in your summary. Is that still the case that he was angry or upset over mayo on his sandwich?
Right. And again, I intentionally did not do it because, again, I want the focus to be on the gun violence. And again, it was something very senseless. Yes, the too much mayo on the sandwich, but again, individual with a gun who decided that was the course of action to resolve conflict. So this is the but more importantly, someone failed to resolve conflict by just walking away, having a conversation to just reorder a sandwich, decided to take actions into his hands, and now we have families who are devastated, and even his family. You know, so again, very.
All right. Really happened. This is a false flag to take away guns. Guns, man. I don't care about that. But let's go deeper into the story. Grains in the sandwich causes mental conditions. It didn't have to happen. This is what I'm saying. You don't have to eat so. You don't have to give kids. People need to be educated about what is actually healthy. And I'm a little ahead of my time. So it's my responsibility not just to complain, but to provide an alternative. And I can't help but just think of my own situation, how my kids were traumatized about the senseless violence that I committed emotionally, you know, by yelling at their mom for giving them food and then just not being able to deal with her because of my own inability to be a man, be a leader at the time of my life. And I guess I had to move through that to really learn what it takes to be a father, a leader, a husband, you know, a lover. And now my kids are traumatized, which if I could go in time, I really would. But fuck Subway. And what responsibility does Subway have? And what responsibility do all these companies have that make junk food that contribute to mental disease? And who's going to hold them accountable? And what is there going to be their punishment financially? I hope they go out of business. I hope everybody who makes money on Subway loses it. I hope all their executives lose their job, and I hope everybody who's invested in Subway loses that money. And the same with all the other junk food companies like Pepsi and Coke and all those food companies that are contributing to environmental destruction their agricultural waste and toxic products. And that's pretty much all the food that is processed. You know, I was teaching class yesterday. What if I start live streaming my class again? Let me know if you think so. Send me a message. Somebody said just do one video a day. What if I do one video? The kids came in a half hour early, which is fine. And we're still eating. They're eating in the car. The youngest kid, he comes in. He's all hyper. I said, "What'd you eat? Junk food? Something with sugar in it?" He starts laughing. Of course. I said, "You know what? You're hyper now. By the end of class, you're going to be on the floor, no energy." He said, "Nah." I called it hyper in the beginning of class. By the end of class, no energy. On the floor, literally. People don't know how to cook. People don't know how to cook. It was a skill that I had to and practice, master over the years because of my house. Because if I didn't have a personal chef, so I cooked for myself. It had to be clean for performance, for weight loss. And, I'm thankful to my mom. I'm thankful to the Jub. I'm even thankful to John Schott, who wrote a life food recipe book. If you want to know any life food recipes, I will send you the ebook. I'll send you any recipe that you want. Just send me a message. Watch the end of this video while I make another fizzy. Oh, Rick.
So his mother is the other victim who was injured. Yes.
This happened at 6:30, busy section. What frustrates you the most about really a senseless shooting like this?
I mean, it's frustrating that we have a 26-year-old female who is no longer with us. It frustrates me that we had an individual with a firearm who decided that, again, that was the answer to resolve a conflict over a sandwich. Again, it's for us to have to spend the investigators' time to, that's the homicide that we're focusing on. It's just, again, it's a senseless act. It's the those who don't make the right decisions. And more importantly, the 5-year-old that was there that's going to have to deal with this long term.
And the mother was the victim who survived?
Yes.
And Chief, one other question here. Did the gunman leave and get the gun, or did he have the gun?
And I don't want to give out too much information. We have to remember that this is something that only has to be tried in court. And so some of the details will be in the report that will be released later at a later time. But I don't want to really get into everything that happened because it still has to be. Again, I'm not going to go into detail. What I will say, I won't give the exact location, but I will say it's close to the incident location.
All right, thank you, everybody.
You care so much about the kids. Why don't you lead by example? If you care so much about the kids, why don't you lead by example? Stop eating junk food. That's what I said. Apples to apples. Why UFC? Will make a pittance. Compared to boxing's kambosos. Well, look, as much as boxing sucks and is deadly, it's still more mainstream than the UFC. One can imagine it was a painful experience for the Ultimate Fighting Championship's 145-pound title holder. Now, a boxing card, there's only 4 fights, at the most 6, and only the main event is the draw. So in the UFC pay-per-view, you got 12 fights, and they all want to get paid. There's 2 championship fights on this card. So that pay-per-view's got to get split up a lot. It was a painful experience for the Ultimate Fighting Championship's 145-pound title holder, Alexander Volkanovski, to work as the color commentator for countryman George Kambosos' recent boxing match at Marvel Stadium. Marvel Stadium? Is that related to the comic books? Dockland Stadium. A naming rights sponsorship as Marvel Stadium. Wow, it is. Cool. Melbourne. Not because of Kambosos' poor showing, or the fact that he was commentating on boxing instead of his own sport of mixed martial arts. No, what must have been tiresome for Volkanovski was hearing again and again that George was set to receive $10 million for his title defense, an amount that is likely more than Volkanovski's entire career earnings. Sheesh! This is despite the fact that Alexander, who will attempt to defend his UFC title this weekend, is the vastly more accomplished fighter of the two. His mistake, choosing a career in mixed martial arts, a sport singularly defined by a promotional monopoly. There are plenty of similarities between mixed martial arts fighter Alexander Volkanovski and boxer George Kambosos, whose championship fights are set to take place a mere 4 weeks apart from one another. Kambosos fought on June 5th, and Volkanovski is set to defend his UFC title on the 2nd of July. Both are Australian, were born and raised in New South Wales, and are of Australian Greek heritage. Both fight in the lower weight classes. Kambosos is in the 135-pound division, and Volkanovski in the 145 pounds division. Both risk serious injury and possible death in their chosen professions. And until Kambosos' recent loss to Devin Haney, both were viewed by the general public as the top of their respective sports and weight classes. Volkanovski has the current Ultimate Fighting Championship world's featherweight title, while Kambosos was the lightweight champion in boxing, holding 3 of the 4 major sanctioning organizations' belts. Where these similarities fall apart, though, is when one looks at what they are paid to practice their craft. To top ranks Bob Arum, who was one of the promoters for the Haney Kambosos event, the Australian received $7 million in compensation for the United States broadcast rights. They gate from more than 40,000 spectators, sponsors, and other sources of revenue. Not included in this amount was Kambosos' share of the residential and commercial pay-per-view sales. Reportedly, 50,000 homes paid $60 to watch the match, along with hundreds of bars that paid much more for the right to screen it. Together, this would have translated to approximately $2 million more for Kambosos, putting his total earning around $9 million. In comparison, Volkanovski makes much, much less As UFC champion, he could be expected to have a contract that paid him around 500 grand to show, along with pay-per-view points, so long as he's defending a title. The standard pay-per-view agreement for those who have them is typically structured so the athlete receives a cascading sum depending on how well the event sells. $1 for each pay-per-view buy between 2 and 400,000. $2 for each pay-per-view buy between 4 and 600,000, and $2.50 for each pay-per-view buy over 600,000. A low-selling pay-per-view would pay nothing, while an extremely successful one, such as UFC 251, where Volkanovski co-headlined alongside a welterweight title fight, could translate to a seven-figure bonus. In most cases, the total pay-per-view buys are under $500,000. Thus, someone at Volkanovski's level might be expected to earn between $500,000 and $1 million a fight. Volkanovski, like all other UFC fighters, does not receive a cut of the gate nor a piece of the commercial pay-per-view. His only sponsorship for the matches is derived from the UFC's apparel deal with Venom, which pays him $42 grand in compliance pay. The upside is exclusively for presidential pay-per-views. Bars, theaters, and other venues are excluded when determining the bonus. The pay-per-views that are included are also commonly limited to places where the price is equivalent of at least $40. This would mean sales in the United States and Canada are always included. Conversely, Australian sales will only be included if the Australian dollar doesn't fall below 73% of the value of the American dollar, which it currently is. For fighters on cards that particularly appeal to Australians, this can be costly. If the dollars remain, then the fighters with pay-per-view bonuses might not receive any income in respect to Australian purposes. The exclusion... let's fast forward. Why is the kambosos make so much more? It's not because boxing is more popular or generates more money. Oh, really? UFC broadcast rights, pay-per-view sales, sponsored money, and ticket sales generate more than $1 billion a year for the company, which holds an average of 42 calendar events. Volkanovski's next event can be expected to generate millions at the gate in T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. Millions more from sponsors, international broadcasters, and a guaranteed 8-figure fee from ESPN for the U.S. residential pay-per-view rights. All told, it's very likely UFC 276 will generate more money than Kambosos vs. Haney did. No, the reason why boxers make more is because boxers get a much higher share of the revenue. Which is to say that in boxing, more of the proceeds go to the fighters than to the paper-pushing suits who manage, promote, and broadcast. This isn't speculation. Documents that the UFC was required to disclose through antitrust litigation in the United States showed that the organization pays approximately 17% of revenue to its athletes. This compares with the roughly 28% of revenues with which Australian football players receive, 50% of revenues paid to athletes in American NFL, baseball, and NBA, and the astronomical sums commanded by boxers. Case in point, Top Rank, Haney's promoter for his fight with Kambosos, recently reported that it paid on average around 70% of its revenues to the boxers. Thus, if they fought on identically performing cards, they could expect to earn 3 times what the UFC fighter. Why do boxers get a higher share? Involve two individuals competing in hand-to-hand combat. The only major difference between the two is one takes place in the ring and one in the cage, and that the average fan sometimes confuses cage fighting with professional wrestling. The explanation can be found in how the two sports are structured, a difference that greatly impacts the leverage that their athletes when dealing with the aforementioned suits. A difference that greatly impacts the leverage that their athletes... that sentence is miswritten. The sport of mixed martial arts is dominated by one entity, the UFC, which has an estimated value of 4 and 10 billion. It's estimated that 90% of all the revenue generated by MMA goes into the UFC, and they have an equal share of the top fighters under long-term exclusive contracts. UFC champions are recognized as the number one fighter in each of their weight class. Ba ba ba. Alright, it's going on about contract. Alright, so because UFC is the only game in town, the fighters take what they can get. By contrast, the labor market in boxing in 2022 is much more heavily geared in favor of its top athletes. It wasn't always this way. Corruption and exploitative conduct were hallmarks of the sweet science throughout much of the 20th century, and a long list of icons found themselves on the receiving end: Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson. However, federal legislation, which was passed at the turn of the century, aptly named the Ali Boxing Reform Act, changed this paradigm and vitally introduced antitrust provisions which gave boxers more bargaining power with promoters and created a more competitive marketing landscape. Unlike MMA, no one promoter dominates the UFC champion Carlos Newton once described the difference between the two sports. In boxing, promoters compete for boxers, who in turn compete for titles, while in MMA, fighters compete for promoters who own titles. Thus, when Volkanovski was given a chance to fight for a UFC title, there would be little in the way of negotiations. If he wanted the opportunity, he would have to fight for it on the date and at the venue of the UFC's choosing. His pay for the championship, about $250,000, had also been determined well ahead in time, when he signed a long-term contract with the UFC earlier in his career before he was a top-ranked contender. Even if some eccentric billionaire wanted to pay Volkanovski $10 million flat to compete in a stadium show in Melbourne or Sydney, Alex would be contractually obliged to decline. The only way he could take up that offer is if he fought out his UFC contract. A 5-year sunset provision make waiting out very difficult, but champions who have attempted this escape have frequently faced retaliatory action from the promotion. You see, what I don't get about this is that who's going to stop you? I mean, you signed a contract. It's a piece of paper you want, man. The paper's not going to make you do anything. What are they going to do? Sue you? Even if they sue you and they win, you don't have to pay. You can't go to jail for that, for violating a contract. This is all just impossible to enforce. These guys are fighting for the UFC because they want to. And you have no right to complain when you're sucking at the teat. And that's what happens when you work with someone else. I'm going to fix all that, though. You wait and see. Master Lukey. Fizzy shot. One more. Okay. Apparently, I was wrong about Travis Barker. Or unless this is a cover story. Travis Barker reportedly hospitalized with pancreatitis after a colonoscopy. Gastroenterologists say it's extremely rare. Travis Barker was hospitalized today morning. But early reports didn't indicate the cause of his admission. Now sources have told TMZ the Blink-182 drummer has pancreatitis or an inflamed pancreas. The pancreas is a gland on the left side of the abdomen that secretes enzymes that break down food. It also helps regulate blood sugar. TMZ said doctors suspected Barker's condition was related to a recent colonoscopy. Colonoscopies are a colon cancer screening tool typically recommended to men of average risk every 10 years once they turn 45. Barker scored 46. Dr. Goldstein, a New York gastroenterologist, told Insider colonoscopy-induced pancreatitis is so rare the reports should be taken with a grain of salt. While it may be true that he had a colonoscopy recently, and it may be true that he had pancreatitis, it's exceedingly hard to believe they're truly cause and effect, he said. Most pancreatitis cases are due to while complications from colonoscopies are rare, they can include a reaction to the anesthesia, bleeding, or a tear in the intestinal wall. Developing pancreatitis from colonoscopy is extremely rare, given the anatomy of where the pancreas is in relation to part of the colon probe during colonoscopy. It's not a thing we consider, whereas the liver or spleen, for example, is. He said that 80% of pancreatitis cases are or alcohol abuse, and then other cases are due to medications, viruses, or procedures other than colonoscopies. Well, there you have it. He's got gallstones, which is not only common, but I would say every single person you meet has gallstones. And then all the drugs he did, and alcohol and junk food gave him pancreatitis. Because the pancreas has to do with blood sugar, things that are going to destroy your pancreas is grains and starches, like wheat. Oh, I said grains already. Bananas, corn, carrots, beets, potatoes, sugar, corn syrup, all that. Pineapple, all the starches. Now, if he's going to get a colonoscopy, what you can be sure of is that he's constipated. The liver is supposed to produce bile and store it in the bile bladder or the gallbladder. When you eat, or at between 2 and 3 p.m. when you have this, I forgot the word. Something cycle. Happens once in a day or twice in a day. Rhythmic cycle. 2 and 3 p.m. is high tide for the gallbladder. You're supposed to release the bile. And that's the chemical that keeps peristalsis, initiates peristalsis. You got stones because the liver is blocked up, the gallbladder is blocked up, you have no bile. Food's taking too long to go through because you have no chemical force. Results in constipation. people think something wrong with the colon, which there is because there's just always rotting crap in there. But the cause is the menu and the resulting bile occlusion. The stones also get lodged in the pancreas. Travis Barker looks like he's got a wellness company making CBD products. Maybe you're into natural healing, Travis Barker. Come see me. We'll flush your liver, your gallbladder, and your pancreas. Heal you from the top down, from your mouth all the way through to the end, including your colon. Don't do the Western treatment for pancreatitis. That's the one condition that has the lowest rate of survival. Ask Patrick. I forgot his name. Sheesh. I don't know if this is my brain injury, but I'm probably just tired. Swayze. Patrick Swayze. That's how he died. I think this is a cover story, though. They're covering up for him. Either that or the rock and roll lifestyle caught up to him. If you or anyone you love is suffering from pancreatitis, colitis, arthritis, dermatitis, any type of itis, any condition, autism, depression, anxiety, mental condition, heart disease, cancer, you name it, you can heal. I can help you. Master Lukey. Click on where it says about and contact information. Social media, cell phone, email, whatever you feel comfortable with, and I will help you. You want to come stay in my apartment? I'll cook for you, teach you how to cook. We'll cook together. I'm fasting, so you can eat it all. Alright? We'll flush your liver. Flush gallbladder. Get the transit time of food back to the way it's supposed to be. It's going to take a few. Might take a lot. You know, I'm finally to the point where I'm able to fast. You're not going to be able to. You're not even going to have to skip a meal. But you're going to have to switch your menu to something healthy. Don't eat Subway. Your life depends on it. You need a martial arts master to teach you how to protect yourself from junk food. Stay tuned.